Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wake Up Report. And there is the man who plowed his car into a group of protesters. There is the woman who was killed as a result of him plowing that car into those protesters. And that brother right there is now a part of history forever, because he is the one that is in that photograph, literally. And I mean, he's wearing a pair of Air Jordans, so literally, he is in the air with his Jordans. And I gotta commend that brother, because the reason he has a broken leg is because he pushed his fiance out of the way of that oncoming vehicle, and he took that blow for his fiance. And unfortunately, he could not rescue his friend. But his name is Marcus Martin. His fiance, his name is Melissa Blair, and the woman who was killed is Heather Heyer. And they were assaulted with that vehicle by Mr. James Alex Fields Jr., who has been arrested and will no doubt be charged with that woman's murder. He came all the way from Ohio, I guess, to commit murder, much to the surprise of his mother, who found out that he was the one who plowed that car into all of those people. And she was just, I'm so surprised. I mean, he has an African American friend, and I was actually talking to somebody about this before. And sometimes just because you have a white friend doesn't make them your friend. What makes them your friend is when it really gets down to the nitty gritty of politics. And I remember I saw a clip, a Phil Donahue clip. And there was a white guy on there, his so-called black best friend, and Alvin Poussaint. That was one of the guests on the show. Well, the black guy, or the white guy, says, he's my best friend, I'm his best friend, and we don't talk about politics. And that's why we're best friends, because we don't talk about politics. So then Dr. Poussaint asked the white guy at the time who he voted for. And I think he said he voted for Ronald Reagan. He asked the black guy, how can he be your best friend if he voted for a man who was directly opposed to a lot of the things that affect you as a black person? In other words, Ronald Reagan at one point was not going to re-sign the Civil Rights Act. And basically, him not doing that would have effectively meant black people in the United States had no rights, because that is what gives you your protection in this country. Now, we've moved on from that since, and me personally, I think that the Civil Rights Act is old. It's done away. It should be done away with. Malcolm X said that it was time to do away with civil rights and move on to a human rights agenda, because when you have a human rights agenda, that covers everybody. So you don't have to have a gay rights agenda. You don't have to have a women's rights agenda, unless you can prove that I am not a human being. And it was tried with black folks before. Then a human rights agenda absolutely covers everybody. But when someone is your friend, your best friend, that means they have your back to the wall. It's ride or die. And this young lady absolutely, defined what a best friend is. She was out there with her friends, out there, and she had their backs. And unfortunately, she lost her life because this idiot decides that he's so ticked off at some protesters that he's going to plow a car into them to make his point. So just absolutely ridiculous. And again, all of this over a statue, a statue that, as I said in my other show, take all that stuff, turn it into a museum so people can go look at that stuff and learn from it, as opposed to doing this childish nonsense, But the issue, though, with this is Donald Trump's refusal to call that man exactly what everybody else knows him to be, which is a terrorist. He is a domestic terrorist. When he took that car and rammed those people like that, much like terrorists everywhere else that use cars as weapons, Donald Trump is quick to call them terrorists. He's quick to call them radical Islamic terrorists if they're Arab. He's quick to talk about bringing fire and brimstone and whatever it is he's going to bring to North Korea. Have you ever noticed how he's really quick to jump on people of color. So he's real quick to attack Arabs, and he's real quick to attack Asians. But he's so hesitant when it comes to attacking one of his own. I wonder why that is. Mr. Trump, now every politician from Democrat to Republican has identified this man's actions as domestic terrorism. Even Donald Trump's daughter came out and called it like it was. So probably what he'll do is he'll retweet what she tweeted, and then that should be enough for you. So his daughter tweeted it, he retweeted it, end of story. And there was even a story that circulated, I couldn't find the clip, that a reporter asked him why he did not call this what it was, which was a terrorist act, and he just walked off of the interview, walked away from the interview. You got to start wondering, why is Donald Trump so hesitant to condemn racist hate groups, the Ku Klux Klan and the Aryan Nation and all these guys that showed up and did this? He has yet to condemn them. And why doesn't he do that? Now, Donald Trump's father has quite a sketchy history with the Ku Klux Klan. Trump has also been heard in other interviews saying, well, he didn't know who David Duke was. He didn't know anything about the KKK, which is absolutely ridiculous. But his father, way back in the day, and it's real sketchy because there's never been a clear reason why he was involved in this skirmish. It's one of two things. He was either in support of the Ku Klux Klan and he was helping them during this riot that broke out, or he was against the Ku Klux Klan and he was fighting against them because they were attacking immigrants or something like that. And, him being an immigrant and Trump being immigrants themselves would have made them targets for the KKK, which is kind of ironic, that David Duke supports a man who, some 40, 50 years ago or so, his organization was responsible for terrorizing pretty much. So, hey, only in America, as Don King would say. Now, as much as Donald Trump likes to brag on himself, because he would be the first person to tweet, first person to tell you what a wonderful job he's doing, what a great person he is, blah, blah, blah. If his father was doing something against the KKK, fighting against the KKK, Donald Trump would be the first person to tweet that out. My father fought against oppression back when we were immigrants. He battled the KKK. It was just him alone versus 2,000 KKK members, and he beat them all. He'd be the first one. And he hasn't said anything about his father's involvement in the KKK. I mean, somebody pressed him on it back during the campaign, but he'd be the first one to brag about that. So you got to wonder, man, what was your father's involvement in the KKK, which meant that you did know about the KKK? And what was your involvement in the KKK? A KKK that you will not denounce to this day, even though they just committed some of the most heinous acts or were involved in some of the most heinous acts of violence in recent history. Donald Trump's absolute refusal to call these groups exactly what they are, racist, hate mongers, and denounce them is just a mystery. Again, you cater to this demographic in order to get elected. Your entire campaign was a campaign of divisiveness, of hate speech. What happened in Charlottesville, that was just a culmination, because this stuff was happening throughout his campaigns. When he was giving his speeches, there were always fights breaking out during his rallies and things like that. So should we be surprised that Donald Trump is front and center in this issue, but he also won't take a stance? I mean, this is just a weak person, man. He talks so much talk, but when it comes time to back it up, he doesn't back up anything. And you would think that after Obama got elected, that all the neo-Nazis and the KKK and all the people who just swore that the United States was just going to descend into this race war because a black man became president, and they were just going to go to war against that. Nothing happened. No violence like this ever occurred during Obama's administration. And you would think that once a black man was elected president of the United States, that all these hate groups and things like that would just have caused utter chaos. They were more respectful during Obama's administration than they are during Trump's administration. So it's just absolutely weird, man. But for Donald Trump to be so quick to tweet, about something. Somebody says something about him, and 0.2 seconds later, he on Twitter attacking him. He's never had a problem tweeting at 4 o'clock in the morning, tweeting at 3 o'clock in the morning, tweeting and attacking people as soon as he thinks they say something about him. He has said nothing. He has tweeted nothing about denouncing these hate groups, about calling them what they are. And that is just sketchy, man. You sketchy with the Russians. Your father was involved in the KKK in some kind of sketchy way. And now here you are, and you refuse to say anything about a group that you should have denounced. It should not take you this long to publicly denounce these people. What's going on with you, Donald Trump? What's going on with you? This is KTM and the Wake Up Report saying think a little bit. It will do wonders for you.